Komsberg Wilderness Nature Reserve is huge, and it's seriously demanding. We quickly developed a saying within the first few months of getting the place: you can't fuck with Komsberg. It's too big and too real. Plus there's the ever-changing dramatic weather that throws test after test at you. In our work, we always emphasise that psychological avoidance is an immature strategy, albeit ubiquitous, adopted by everyone through the social conditioning of monkey do what monkey see. One of our books is aptly titled Avoidance Doesn't Work, and the harsh but great reality of Komsberg provides a constant reminder of this practical truth. Victoria and I have been involved from the very beginning. We've spilt blood, sweaty buckets, and shed plenty of tears. You might recognise Victoria as she's featured in 3 of our previous films. She made 2 quick appearances as a zombie in a film about the need for mental alertness. She also joined me in a bit of a rant when we made clear that you can say UFO, UFOs and UAP, but not UAPs. And she was the star of the show in Rain Dance as the one and only goddess of precipitation. Both of us have dedicated a large chunk of our lives to making Komsberg a success story, and we're not done yet. Over the many years working here, we've built up phenomenal amounts of grit and perseverance, resilience. So, however difficult the task, we never give up. And this determination is just part of an overall attitude we know is necessary to get things done. I've already presented a series of 42 films explaining our unusual approach, which can be summarised as being the best you can be. And there'll be a link to these films in the description box below. All of the hard work that's been needed to set this place up is only part of the story. We've also had some truly amazing times here. This example is a bit personal, but I proposed to my future husband at this very spot, one Valentine's Day, getting married a couple of months later on a mountain over there. The tears shed on those occasions were ones of joy. Our first major task was to erect a game fence around the perimeter of the land. This is a legal requirement, as well as a practical one, before any wild animal reintroductions can be authorised by the government. Putting the fencing up turned out to be the mother of all undertakings. We've got 98 kilometres or 61 miles of perimeter fence, and it's 2.4 metres tall. That's a hell of a lot of fencing to put up. After buying the necessary materials and offloading it all, we then had to move everything into position. As we first and foremost think of what the wild animals need, which is unsport habitat, we ruled out making new roads just to make things easier for us. So this usually meant manually carrying the various items, sometimes for a long way, often up and down steep mountainsides. None of it was a stroll in the park, but some bits were especially challenging. We nicknamed this tough stretch Cliff to be Fenced. All of the fencing materials were heavy. A single roll of wire weighs 50 kilograms, and we needed hundreds and hundreds of these rolls. Victoria carried them like a necklace, sometimes mile after mile. As you can see, the wooden straining posts are chunky. They're heavy too, and again, we needed hundreds and hundreds of them. And we had to carry this heavy metal winder everywhere to pull out the rolls of wire. It's a unique contraption, specially made for us, and to begin with it took 4 team members to move it up a mountainside. Then, as there was usually just 2 of us here, we quickly had to adapt, thinking, fuck it, somehow we've got to do it. Getting to work each day sometimes involved driving along rough tracks for an hour or so, before then carrying the materials and tools into place. I fenced up and down these mountains behind me, for example, working with just one other woman. After the fencing was mostly done, a rock drill was generously donated to us. This helped, but the work still wasn't easy. Victoria was our drill operator for many years, although recently she's trained 2 younger team members to use it. Before we bought Komsberg in February 2002, the land had been used for sheep farming, typical of the whole region. A few years after establishing Komsberg as a nature reserve, we purchased an adjoining sheep farm. This second block of land literally doubled the size of the reserve, providing even more space for wildlife to flourish. As well as erecting the 61 miles of perimeter fencing, we also had to take down many miles of internal fencing, previously used to divide the land up for rotational sheep grazing. I did that job on my first day here, and it was very fiddly and extremely frustrating. After being dismantled, everything then had to be carried out. And now there's no evidence of us doing all that thankless work for months and months, other than that camp fencing is gone, allowing our wild animals to roam free. When you're in the wilderness, with none of the modern day distractions, a common response is to become aware of a constant chatter in your head. When it gets physically uncomfortable or tough, you can feel sorry for yourself. You then lose sight of the bigger picture and want to give up. This is an indication of insufficient self-awareness and self-reliance. So, to get through this initial hurdle, you've got to dig deep, reminding yourself of what the long-term goal is, knowing that quitters don't achieve anything worthwhile. In the winter of 2012, after the fencing was up, we suffered a massive setback. Overnight, 35 kilometres of perimeter fencing was pulled down by a freak weather incident that had never been witnessed before in living memory. Just after dark, it started to rain. The temperature dropped to freezing, and the wind howled. Astonishingly, long horizontal icicles formed on the fencing wires. Eventually, as they grew bigger and heavier, the combined weight dragged the fence over. 35 kilometres of it. We've kept this thick metal eye post to illustrate what the power of nature did that night. A 20-ton press, owned by Anton, our friend and mechanic, couldn't bend it back. Victoria and one other woman were here at Komsberg when catastrophe happened, adopting the French pronunciation to describe the calamity. They first somehow got it all semi-upright again, quickly, to make sure we didn't lose any of our wild animals. It looked a mess, but just about did the job. They then spent the next 18 months redoing it. Extra wooden line posts were added to hopefully prevent as much damage happening if there's a similar freak weather event any time in the future. Although the summer months are hot here, we normally get several falls of snow during the winter time, with frost happening more frequently. We're one of the coldest places in South Africa. This was Victoria and I walking along a bit of the fence line in early spring after we'd had a dusting of snow. We diligently check every bit of the 98 kilometres or 61 miles of perimeter fencing every 10 days. And we do it on foot, which is definitely the best way. This takes a lot of sustained mental concentration. Here's some of the drone footage from a short film we did about Komsberg's fence. I should quickly mention that we do all of this working as non-paid professionals. To be clear, I'm not saying this to make us look good, because we don't give a shit about things like that. We've taken this unusual stance as a result of seeing charities and other not-for-profit organisations wasting obscene amounts of money. To call them ineffective and inefficient is putting it mildly. We've already made a film about this fiasco and why we deliberately choose to work non-paid, so I won't bother to explain more here. That film is part of the series I mentioned earlier, with a link in the description box below. I was here at Komsberg for most of the animal reintroductions, to make sure everything went well and to monitor how they settled into their new home. This is the offloading ramp we made and used to get the beasties off the transportation lorries. It's our own design, which can be quickly assembled, dismantled and moved to different locations as required. These photos and videos show some of the great historic moments as the animals were released. us, our single greatest achievement has been the reintroduction of the endangered Cape Mountain zebra. We've since built up a great population, and the mountainous habitat here at Komsberg is more spectacular than anywhere else in South Africa where this species exists. Komsberg is split into 3 sections. Komsberg West has a bit of plateau, most of our mountainside terrain, a lower valley area with a couple of seasonal rivers lined with thousands of acacia trees, plus a mid-altitude part. Komsberg West is home to our Cape Mountain zebra and kudu, with the kudu usually staying amongst the trees down in the valley. Most of our klipspringers are found here too, because they prefer the security of the steep mountainsides. Komsberg East is mainly plateau, our best land for grazing, although it also includes a mid-altitude bowl area just below the edge of plateau where our main homestead is situated. This is the section where our Birchall zebra and red hartebeest live. Komsberg North is also plateau, but it's a bit drier here than on the east, with this section generally receiving less rainfall. It includes the expanse of this large, slightly lower river bowl area below me. If you look closely, there's a herd of black wildebeest in the distance. Eland live here on the north. They're by far the biggest of our animals, with males weighing up to 840 kilograms, more than 2.5 times heavier than a zebra. So they need a lot of land to provide them with all the food they require. Our other animals are found throughout the reserve, including springbok, of course, which are one of the best known species that exist in the Karoo. Grey reebok deserves special mention. They're only found in the mountainous regions of South Africa, and Komsberg has the densest population of this antelope anywhere. They're brilliantly adapted to our habitat. Women around the world accentuate their eyelashes, but nobody can compete with those of a grey reebok. We love these beasties, and it's an honour to be able to give them a secure home. We've got our fair share of nocturnal animals here at Komsberg. Batted foxes survived here throughout the sheep farming years, but they've since increased in numbers. Our population of African wildcats is important. This is one of the few places left where their genetics remain pure. Elsewhere, there's been interbreeding with feral domesticated cats. The aardvark is one of our most unusual creatures, with Komsberg West's lower valley holding a good number. And we've got porcupine, of course, plus honey badgers, renowned to be the world's most ferocious creature. Black-backed jackal and caracal are our 2 biggest predators, both having now significantly recovered here after continuous persecution by sheep farmers throughout the region. Years ago, Victoria and I hand-reared an orphaned baby jackal. We called him Happy. He was so intelligent, and it was a privilege to be part of his early life. After reaching adulthood, he left our protection and established a territory on Komsberg East. He found a mate, and we know that they successfully reared young. Victoria also hand-reared a baby springbok, given to us by a game capture team. We named her Honor. When she was old enough, we acquired a male, which had also been hand-reared. They've since had young, and this small group of springbok live in our spacious homestead area. We had a drought year early on, in 2005-2006, resulting in the death of some of our springbok and grey reebok. This has to be periodically expected throughout the semi-arid Karoo because conditions are frequently challenging, even if the annual rainfall here at Komsberg is a bit higher than that received elsewhere in the region. We didn't know it at the time, but much worse was to come. Climate change is a hard thing to pin down to specifics, especially at the local level rather than globally. But we've recently suffered 7 continual years of severe drought. It was getting seriously desperate towards the end of 2017 when we made our first film, Drought, just using a drone. As the film and a subsequent one showed, we had to bring in lorry loads of supplementary food to keep the animals alive. We've had to do this many times since. Unfortunately, not all species will eat this food. Gemsbok are one that won't. And, despite being quite resilient to drought conditions, we've lost most of the animals of this species that were born on Komsberg following a couple of initial reintroductions. Before these devastating drought years, we would see herds of up to 40 gemsbok as they moved around, especially on the west, but we're now down to just a few remaining animals. Thankfully, other species, such as the Cape Mountain zebra, happily eat the supplementary food we've put out for them, so they've survived. Victoria is a great dancer. So we shot the rain dance film that I mentioned earlier, with her featuring as the goddess of precipitation. It was an opportunity to showcase some of Komsberg's dramatic landscapes, and the film's punchline came at the end when we quoted Stevie Wonder's wise words, "Superstition ain't the way." Despite a coincidental downpour a week after filming, the long-term drought conditions continued. Not long ago, in December 2022, we had 2 summer thunderstorms 1 week apart, bringing lots of rain, the best we've had for more than 10 years. The problem with summer downpours is that a lot of water falls onto dry ground within a very short period of time, heading downhill at an alarming speed. These flash floods can cause havoc. And they did. Vulnerable spots in the fence line are where rivers and mountain streams pass through, and mesh can be torn away. Our dirt roads can likewise be washed away, again with repairs inevitably needed. One time we lost a really long section of this track here on Komsberg North. We had to move thousands of large rocks to begin the process of filling in the gullies. There's an extinct volcano nearby, which you can just make out behind me. One year, as an April Fool's joke, a neighbour took some old tyres to the top and burnt them, causing a shitload of smoke. He took a photo, then sent it to the local newspaper. Our neighbours are great, always inventive, because life here in a remote part of the country isn't easy. You can also see the South African National Observatory from Komsberg North. We're high up here, in the middle of nowhere, with no air pollution or light pollution, so it's an ideal location for viewing the night sky. The Milky Way looks spectacular, and thinking about what other life is probably out there amongst the stars is humbling. If you're interested in stuff like that, please have a look at our evolvefirst.org website. You'll find it fascinating. Again, there'll be a link in the description box below. The land had been grazed by sheep for about 300 years before we arrived on the scene and was therefore degraded. We initially left it to recover, as there were barely any grasses remaining. And, after only a few years, the land did recover, with grasses springing up, multiplying and spreading. Komsberg is situated within the upper succulent Karoo, as well as the Cape Fynbos biome, 2 of the world's 25 most important conservation hotspots for biodiversity. We're also within a special centre of plant endemism, with a high percentage of species found nowhere else, partly because the land gets covered by frost and snow during the winter months. We've identified a new species of grass here on Komsberg. We call it Blue Arata. It still needs to be officially reclassified by a botanist in the future, but we've already established that its DNA is different, as well as more obvious characteristics, working with botanists from Cape Town and Oxford University. One of our succulents, this tiny Delosperma here, is only found on Komsberg, with colourful flowers emerging in springtime. The biggest of our endemic plants is the star tree, which eventually grows to head height and above. It's endangered, having been decimated by early settlers for firewood. We had an excellent population of several thousand, one of the biggest anywhere, but the recent 7 years of drought has taken its toll. Thankfully, new young trees are emerging. One of the tiniest is another succulent, this Conophytum. After we discovered it growing in rocky crevices on one of our mountainsides here on Komsberg West, experts had to extend the known range of where it's found. At the end of the harsh summer, its wrinkled exterior cracks open, revealing new growth before the plant then flowers. Most, but not all, of our wildflowers bloom at the end of winter into early spring. Some years, if there's been exceptionally good winter rainfall, nature's display can be phenomenal. An incredible sight, with literally millions of tiny flowers of varying colours erupting everywhere from this otherwise semi-arid habitat. Lots of reptiles here as well. Lizards, tortoises and snakes. To the succulents. We've got a large greenhouse here at the homestead, showcasing a collection of cacti and other succulents from around the world. Nature's amazing, wonderfully diverse, and these unusual plants are just one example of this. Honor frequently tries to get inside, curious to discover if there's anything new to nibble. So you need eyes in the back of your head when you're working in here if you dare to leave the door open. As well as the regular fence checks. And remember, it's a total length of 98 kilometres or 61 miles to walk every 10 days. There's always plenty of other jobs that need doing. The animals drink from a number of dams, but there are also water holes fed by pumping water from underground boreholes. In the sheep farming days, there were mechanical windmills to do the pumping. We learnt how to fix them and do the necessary maintenance, as you can see happening here behind me. Gradually, however, we've mostly replaced them with solar panels and pumps. These still need checking and repairing, of course, a crucially important job because the animals must always have access to water. But this more modern system works best. Big animals eventually mess up certain water holes, so they need improving when you can find a couple of spare days. Victoria and I are nowadays passing on what we've learnt to our younger team members, not least all we know about fencing. Komsberg Wilderness Nature Reserve is needed in itself to preserve wild species and the natural habitats. But there's another, deeper purpose to Komsberg. It's an ongoing practical demonstration of what's required to make the world a better place. Our sister organisation, the Human Potential Trust, has the educational aim of promoting a significantly different way of thinking, feeling and behaving. We've identified 16 key factors necessary for being the best you can be. I've already mentioned grit and perseverance, what we call never give up. Service before self is another of these essential key factors. There's no belief involved in our work whatsoever. It's just psychology. The ultimate aim is self-transcendence, which we're sure is the next step forward in human evolution. Unfortunately, the majority of people who claim interest in changing themselves just talk the talk. Mostly bullshit, to be blunt. They're self-obsessed, with their thinking heavily polluted by woo-woo and platitudes. Tellingly, they fail to walk the walk. They're hypocrites, unable to even recognise this and the other contradictions. So we place special emphasis on another of our 16 key factors, the need for an anti-hypocrisy test. And that boils down to actions speak louder than words. Komsberg is an example of this practical application. I won't say anything more about this crucial matter now, but I'd urge you to watch another of our films titled Self-Actualization, Self-Transcendence, Enlightenment, a Higher Consciousness, What's Going On? Again, there'll be a link in the description box below. With Komsberg well established, we can now look forward to the future. Any nature reserve must be a long-term project. If you've been watching this film thinking I'd like to be part of that team, doing what they're doing, you can. We have interviews each year with details of how to apply on our Wildlife for All website. You don't need to have previous conservation experience, which really isn't of much use because we place the emphasis more on attitude than on anything else. And we provide all of the necessary training. If you're interested in getting involved, which I hope you are, you need to become familiar with what our sister organisation, the Human Potential Trust, is trying to achieve. Because attitude really is the key to our unusual level of success. Ours is a deeper approach to nature conservation.